Some lakes don't echo. You shout into the dark, and nothing comes back. As if the water swallows sound the same way it swallows light. And people, we thought we were alone that night. Just 4 friends, a quiet lake, and a plan to fish where no one else dared to go. But when we found the canoe, with the flashlight still on and the phone still recording, we realized we weren't the first ones there. And the man across the water, he was still watching. We weren't supposed to be there. That's the part that keeps echoing in my head, like if we just stayed home that night, none of this would have happened. The reservoir was off limits, fenced off with old warning signs that no one took seriously anymore. Private property, they said, and below it, dangerous water levels. But to us, that just meant quiet. No rangers, no crowds, no one to tell us to leave. There were 4 of us that night. Me, Nick, Kat, and Megan. Nick was the one who came up with the idea. He always did. He said he'd heard the fishing there was incredible, that nobody went near it anymore since the incident. He said it like a joke, but I could tell even he didn't believe the words that followed. Something about a drowning, a missing person, a boat that never came back. We arrived just before midnight. The moon was low, the color of bone, hanging over a lake so still it looked frozen. The air smelled sharp metallic, wet, like rain that had forgotten to fall. We parked by the tree line and carried our gear down the narrow path to the water. The sound of our footsteps was loud against the silence. "Damn," Nick said, shining his flashlight across the lake. "It's like a mirror." "It's creepy," Megan murmured. "Why is it so quiet?" "It's a reservoir," Kat said. "No current, no wildlife. Just still." Her voice was soft, but it didn't help. The silence pressed against us anyway. Even the air seemed to hum. We pushed off in our small rental boat, Nick and I rowing, Kat and Megan sitting at the front, wrapped in their jackets. The oars broke the surface with quiet rhythm, each stroke leaving a silver trail in the moonlight. At first, everything felt normal. The kind of normal that comes right before something changes. Nick cracked open a beer. "Told you it'd be peaceful," he said. "You guys worry too much." "Maybe we should worry just enough," I muttered, glancing at the far shore. "You said someone died out here?" He shrugged. "That's the rumor. Supposedly, some guy came out to fish a few years ago. They found his truck, but not him. Not the boat either." Kat turned her head. "They never found him?" "Nope." "What was his name?" Megan asked quietly. Nick frowned, thinking. "Don't remember. But the story goes he wasn't alone when he disappeared. That shut everyone up for a while." The boat drifted through fog that seemed to rise from the lake itself. It wasn't thick, but it hung low, brushing our faces when the wind died. The water was so black, it reflected the moon like a hole in the world. After a while, I noticed something strange. The ripples from our oars faded faster than they should have. They disappeared the second they spread out, like the water was swallowing them. "You feel that?" I asked. Nick glanced up. "Feel what?" "The air. It's colder here." He looked around. "We're in the middle of a damn lake, dude. Of course it's colder." Maybe he was right, but the feeling didn't go away. It wasn't just cold, it was heavy. Like the air was pressing down on us, waiting for something. Kat broke the silence. "What time is it?" Nick checked his phone. "Almost 1. Let's head back soon," Megan said. "It feels—" She stopped mid-sentence. "What?" I asked. "Do you see that?" We all turned. Far ahead, near the opposite bank, a faint light hovered above the water. At first, I thought it was a reflection of the moon, but it was too low, too steady. Nick leaned forward, squinting. "Is that a boat?" The light wavered, flickered once, then steadied again. "Probably someone else fishing," Kat said, though her voice wasn't convincing. "At 1 in the morning?" Megan whispered. We drifted closer, our oars barely touching the water now. The light grew clearer abeam from a flashlight, resting on the floor of a small, half-submerged canoe. "It's empty," Nick said. The others didn't speak. I could see it now. The canoe was wedged between two rocks near the bank, the bow tilted upward. Inside was a mess of a fishing rod, a tackle box, an open thermos. The flashlight lay near the middle seat, pointing down into the water, illuminating a pale patch beneath the surface. "Someone left in a hurry," Kat said softly. Megan clutched her jacket tighter. "We should go." Nick frowned, already leaning over the side. "Hold up. There might be something in there." "Nick," I warned, "don't." He reached in with the paddle, pushing the canoe slightly. It rocked once, and something clinked inside. He hooked the flashlight with the paddle and lifted it out. The light hit our faces white, harsh, blinding. "Careful," Kat said. Nick turned the flashlight around, inspecting it. The lens was cracked, the handle slick with water. When he tilted it toward himself, we saw what was carved into the side. 4 letters scratched deep into the plastic. "Help." No one spoke for a long time. The only sound was the slow lap of water against the boats. Finally, Megan whispered, "Maybe whoever was here drowned." Nick set the flashlight down, his face pale. "Then where's the body?" No one answered. The beam of light still shone into the lake, cutting through the blackness below, and in that beam I saw something move. Just for a second, a shadow, long and thin, gliding past. "Did you see that?" I asked. "See what?" "Something moved." Kat leaned closer. "Maybe a fish?" I didn't answer. "Because fish don't move like that." The closer we drifted, the less it felt like we were approaching something human. The air itself seemed to change, still, damp, heavy with a smell that wasn't quite rot, but something older, like the water had been holding its breath for years. Nick steadied the boat beside the half-submerged canoe. The flashlight he'd pulled up kept flickering, throwing thin, nervous bands of light across the surface. Every few seconds, the beam hit the trees, the rocks, our faces, and then the other boat again, sitting crooked and alone in the shallows. Kat leaned forward. "There's food in there," she said softly. She was right. There was an open thermos, a sandwich, half-eaten, the bread swollen with water. Beside it, a tackle box lay open, the lures still swinging from their hooks. Whoever had been here hadn't left because they wanted to. Nick picked up the sandwich, sniffed it, and dropped it back like it had burned him. Still fresh. I looked down at the seat where the flashlight had been. The phone was there too, its screen faintly lit, casting a gray glow through the water, pooling in the bottom of the canoe. The wallpaper was plain black. A notification flickered across it. "One audio recording. Playing." "Is that?" Megan's voice cracked. Nick reached for it. "It's still on." "Don't touch it," I said, but he already had. He lifted the phone out. Water ran down his arm, dripping into the boat. The audio kept playing, the speaker crackling, distorted but unmistakable. A man's voice, breathing hard. The sound of water slapping wood. Then faint, in the background, another voice. A woman's, maybe, low, whispering. The words were impossible to make out, muffled like they were underwater. Nick turned up the volume. The man on the recording said something. "If anyone finds this, don't stay after dark. It's in the water." A loud splash followed, then the sound of the phone hitting the floor of the canoe. The recording ended. The screen dimmed, and the phone went silent. No one spoke. Kat finally whispered. That was a warning. Nick shook his head. Could have been fake. Some kind of prank. Megan's voice was barely audible. Then where is he? The question hung there, heavy and uninvited. The fog began to close in around us, thin strands curling over the surface of the lake. The air grew colder. Even the insects had gone quiet. Then I noticed something strange. The water near the canoe was moving. Not rippling, not splashing, just shifting, as though something below was exhaling. Kat saw it too. What's that? We leaned closer. The flashlight beam trembled across the water, and then it hit something pale just beneath the surface. It wasn't a fish. It wasn't even shaped like one. It was round, smooth, the color of skin. Nick cursed, nearly dropping the light. Jesus, what was that? The pale shape drifted away, disappearing into the dark like it had never been there. The water stilled. Kat's voice shook. Let's leave, now. Nick hesitated, looking between us and the canoe. We should at least mark this spot. Tell someone. There's no signal, I said, checking my phone. No bars. Nothing. He sighed, shoved the phone back into his pocket. Fine. We'll row back, okay? We started to pull away, the oars cutting through the black water. The fog was thicker now, swallowing the far shore. The light from the abandoned canoe faded behind us, until it was just a dim spark floating in the dark. Then, somewhere across the lake, a new light appeared. It wasn't a flashlight. It was smaller, steadier, moving low along the waterline. And behind it, a shape tall, thin, standing perfectly still at the far bank. Kat whispered, "Do you see him?" Nick turned the flashlight. The beam crossed the lake, catching the figure for half a second before the fog swallowed it. A man, barefoot, shirtless, staring straight at us. The light disappeared. The man did not. "Nick," Megan said softly, "please, let's go." Nick didn't answer. He was still looking toward the opposite shore, his mouth slightly open. "He's watching us," he said. The man didn't move, didn't shout, didn't blink, just stood there. Then, slowly, he raised one arm and pointed at us. No one moved. The man stood on the far shore, his arm still outstretched, finger pointing straight at us across the glassy water. The fog drifted between us in slow, lazy sheets, but even when it hit him, I could still feel him there watching. Nick raised the flashlight again. The beam caught him just long enough for us to see his face. Or rather, what was left of it. His skin was pale, stretched too tight, like something that had spent too long underwater. His eyes reflected the light, but not like normal eyes. They glowed, flat and white, like wet glass catching the moon. His lips moved, slow and stiff, but no sound came out. Then, faintly, we heard it not from him, but from the lake itself. "Leave." The word rippled across the surface like a breath. Kat grabbed my arm. Did you hear that?" Before I could answer, the voice came again. Louder, closer. "Leave now." Nick's hand was shaking. "It's someone screwing with us." "Then why does it sound like it's coming from under the water?" Megan whispered. The man stepped forward, bare feet sinking into the shallows. The reflection of the moon broke around his ankles. "Hey!" Nick called out, his voice cracking. "Who are you?" The man tilted his head, the motion stiff, mechanical. Then his mouth opened wider, far too wide. "Go home." The sound was wrong. It was deep, distorted, like a voice played backward through a broken speaker. The words echoed through the fog, vibrating in my chest. Nick lowered the flashlight. "We're leaving," he muttered. "Okay, we're going." He started to paddle hard. I followed, my arms moving before my mind caught up. The oars cut through the surface, sending ripples across the black mirror. But as soon as we turned, Megan gasped. He's moving." I looked back. The man had stepped deeper into the lake. The water reached his knees, then his waist, then his chest. He didn't stop. "Row, Nick." Kat screamed. We rowed, harder. The boat jerked forward, slicing through the fog. My breath came ragged, my muscles burning. I didn't look back. Then Megan said, barely above a whisper, "He's swimming." I turned. He wasn't swimming. Not really. His body was too still, his head too high above the water. It was like he was gliding, pulled forward by something beneath him. Each movement sent small, perfect ripples toward us, too even, too silent. Nick cursed under his breath. He's catching up. The fog thickened, curling around the oars, the edge of the boat. The sound of the water behind us grew louder, faster. Slap, 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 like hands hitting the surface, closing the distance. "Come on," Cat cried. "Faster." Nick didn't answer. His face was gray, jaw clenched. The boat lurched. My paddle hit something solid beneath the water, something that felt like a shoulder or a head. I jerked it back, heart pounding. The paddle came up dripping with black sludge. "What the hell was that?" I shouted. No one answered. Megan was staring past me, eyes wide. "There's more than one," she whispered. At first, I thought she was wrong. But then I saw it too. Shapes pale, human, moving under the water in long, fluid motions, not swimming, dragging themselves. Their outlines shimmered through the fog, just beneath the surface. Dozens of them. The man was almost to us now. The water barely reached his shoulders. He shouldn't have been able to move that fast. Nick swung the flashlight toward him, and for a split second, the light caught something I'll never forget. His mouth was open, wide and dark, water pouring out like he'd swallowed the lake itself. Then the light died. Darkness. Silence. We stopped rowing, gasping, blind. From the blackness behind us came a single sound, the soft ripple of water breaking. And then a voice right next to my ear. "You shouldn't have touched the boat." I swung the paddle blindly, hitting nothing. My hand brushed against something slick and cold. Fingers. I screamed and pulled away, nearly tipping us over. "Keep rowing," Nick shouted. We did, harder than before. The fog parted just enough for us to see the faint outline of the opposite shore. I didn't look back again, but I could feel it, the pull of the lake behind us, the rhythm of something that wasn't swimming, but reaching, closer with every second. And through it all, I kept hearing that voice, inside my skull, calm and slow. "Don't look back." The fog closed in so tight, we could barely see the tip of the boat. The world shrank to the sound of our oars, the water, and our breathing. Every stroke felt heavier than the last, like the lake was fighting back, grabbing at the paddles, tugging at the hull. "Don't stop," Nick said. His voice was shaking. "Don't you dare stop." "I can't see where we're going," Cat cried. "We could hit the rocks." "Then hit them," he snapped. "Just keep moving." Something brushed the side of the boat. A soft, deliberate bump, then another. Megan whimpered. "It's under us." Nick's hands were trembling so hard the oar kept slipping. The water was too quiet again. Even the sound of our paddles seemed muffled, like we were moving through thick oil instead of water. Then came a splash, loud, close, and heavy. He was back. I turned. Through the mist, I could just make out his head breaking the surface behind us, pale and gleaming in the moonlight. His body moved with slow, unnatural grace, arms rising and falling in perfect rhythm. But the water didn't move like it should have. There were no waves, no sound of splashing, only stillness around him. "Row!" Nick shouted. We rowed. The muscles in my arms screamed. My throat burned with the taste of iron. I risked a glance behind me and almost dropped the oar. He was closer, much closer. His head tilted as he swam, face turned toward us, eyes unblinking. His mouth hung open, and something dark spilled out of it as he glided forward. His movements were too smooth, like the lake was carrying him rather than the other way around. Cat whispered, "He's not swimming." "What?" She pointed, shaking. "He's floating. He's not even moving his legs." The man's head dipped below the surface. The water where he'd been rippled once then went still again. "Where'd he go?" Megan cried. Nick's light swept across the water, cutting through fog and darkness. Nothing. Only the empty lake, black and endless. I opened my mouth to tell them to keep rowing, but the boat jolted hard enough to knock me sideways. My shoulder hit the wood. Something had slammed into the bottom. What the hell was that? Nick shouted. Before anyone could answer, a second impact came, this one harder. The hull shuddered. The water around us began to vibrate, ripples spreading outward in perfect circles. Then came the sound. A low hum, deep and steady, rising from beneath the water. It didn't sound human. It sounded alive, like the voice of the lake itself, vibrating through the wood, through the air, through my bones. Megan clamped her hands over her ears. "Make it stop. Please make it stop." "It's the water," I said, though I didn't believe it. "It's just water." The hum deepened, almost becoming a growl. And then, out of nowhere, the surface exploded. Something rose from the lake with a sound like the earth tearing open. It was the man, his arms spread wide, his face twisted into a grin that looked carved. His skin glistened like wet porcelain. The water rolled off him in sheets, yet somehow his eyes stayed dry. He didn't shout. He didn't scream. He just looked at us. Then he sank again, slow and deliberate, as if something below was pulling him down. "Keep going," Nick yelled. "We're almost there." But we weren't. The fog parted just enough for us to see the shore, except it wasn't the same one we'd come from. It was farther, darker. The trees bent low over the water like black ribs. I turned back. The man was gone again. But the surface was moving, dozens of pale shapes, gliding just beneath it, following us. Too many to count. They moved in sync, like one creature wearing 100 faces. Kat dropped her oar. Oh God, there's more of them. The boat began to spin as the water around us churned. It was subtle at first, a small, gentle pull. Within seconds, we were trapped in a slow spiral, the current tightening with every rotation. Nick cursed, leaning over the side to push us free. "We're caught in something." He froze mid-sentence. I followed his gaze. Between his hands, gripping the edge of the boat, was another hand. Pale, waterlogged, 3 fingers. "Nick!" I screamed. He tried to pull away, but it tightened its hold. The skin around his wrist went white. The hand yanked hard. He went under without a sound. The lake swallowed him in an instant. Kat screamed. Megan started crying, reaching for him, but there was nothing to grab, just ripples. "Nick!" I shouted into the fog. "Nick, answer me." Silence. Then softly from the direction he'd gone under. "Row." I froze. It was his voice. But the word had come from below. I gripped the oar so hard my fingers hurt. "Row." I yelled. We rowed blind, the fog burning our throats, the sound of the water growing thicker and heavier, as though the lake itself had come alive. Megan sobbed. "He told us to row. He told us to—" "He's not Nick anymore," Kat shouted. "That wasn't him." The fog shifted. For 1 second, we saw the water clearly. And there he was. Nick standing waist-deep, motionless, in the middle of the lake. His arms hung limp at his sides. His eyes were wide, his mouth slightly open. The current moved around him, but he didn't move with it. He was facing us. And behind him, something vast and black stirred beneath the surface, moving closer. Nick's eyes stayed locked on us, but there was nothing behind them anymore. No recognition, no fear, just emptiness. The fog swirled around his body, and for a moment I couldn't tell where the lake ended and he began. Then, without warning, he dropped, straight down. No splash, no sound, just gone. Megan screamed. Kat grabbed her, yelling something I couldn't make out over the rush of blood in my ears. The boat rocked hard. The current was pulling us now, fast and steady, spinning toward the center of the lake. "Hold on," I shouted. The fog began to twist above us, spiraling in sync with the water below. The air crackled with a low vibration, almost like a hum, but deep, guttural, alive. The oars felt useless, like they were cutting through syrup. "Something's pulling us," Cat cried. "Keep paddling." Then the boat lurched violently to one side. Megan lost her grip and hit the edge. Her hand slipped into the water. "Megan, no." She screamed and yanked her arm back, but something yanked harder. She was pulled forward, nearly overboard. I lunged, grabbing her by the jacket, but I could feel it too, that same cold, dragging pressure from below. Not just one pull, but several. Hands, too many hands. They clutched at her, pale and soft, fingers sliding up her wrist, her elbow, her shoulder. I could see them in the moonlight now, reaching through the black water-human shapes, slick and half-formed, their faces just beneath the surface, eyes open, mouths moving soundlessly. I pulled harder. Cat joined me, both of us screaming. Megan's nails dug into my skin. For a second, I thought we had her. Then something snapped. Her body jerked forward and vanished beneath the water, swallowed whole. The lake went still. I froze, staring at the spot where she'd been. My own reflection stared back, rippling faintly. Then I heard the voice again, quiet, patient, like a whisper rising through the deep. "You shouldn't have come." I looked at Cat. Her face was white, her lips trembling. What was that?" The water began to move again, slow, deliberate, circling the boat. We were spinning faster now. The fog thickened, cutting off the stars. The only light came from the faint glow of that cursed canoe, still stranded on the far side of the lake. "Jay," Cat said, her voice shaking. "They're not drowning." "They're here." I turned to her. "What do you mean?" Her eyes darted downward. I followed her gaze. The shapes beneath the boat had multiplied. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, swirling together in one enormous circle beneath us. Some of the faces I recognized. Nick, Megan, the man from the shore. Their eyes were open. Their mouths moved with the same rhythm as the ripples on the water. Cat backed away, shaking her head. "No, no, no, no." Then, from the water, something rose a hand, long and gray, its fingers fused by thin strands of weed. It rested gently against the side of the boat, tapping once, twice, like it was knocking. Tap, tap. The sound echoed through my skull. I grabbed the paddle and slammed it against the hand. The wood struck solid flesh. A sound like a deep inhale came from below, and then the lake pulled back. The water around us swelled upward, as if something massive had exhaled. The boat lifted, tilting. Cat screamed. Then the lake collapsed inward. Water rushed toward the center, dragging us with it. The current was a living thing now, strong, furious, intelligent. I tried to grab Cat's arm, but she was already slipping, her fingers clawing at the edge. "Jay!" she screamed. And then she was gone too. I fell backward, hitting the floor of the boat, gasping. The water rose higher and higher until it spilled over the edge. The boat began to sink. "Stop!" I yelled into the dark, though I didn't know who I was shouting at. "Stop!" The lake didn't listen. It kept pulling. I kicked free, leapt into the water, and swam blindly toward what I thought was the shore. Every stroke felt heavier, slower. My arms cut through liquid thicker than water. When I looked down, I saw faces beneath me, eyes open, mouths wide, streaming bubbles that drifted upward like sighs. Then a hand closed around my ankle. I thrashed, kicked, screamed. The hand tightened, pulling me downward. I could feel nails digging into my skin, the pressure crushing. I kicked again, harder, felt it slip, but another hand caught me. Then another. The surface above me glowed faintly, pale like the moon through fog. I could see my reflection there, distorted, watching me drown. And just before the world went black, I saw something else. The man, the same one who had watched us from the shore. He was floating a few feet away, his face inches from mine, his eyes calm and empty. His mouth opened and water poured out, filled with voices. You shouldn't have looked. Then his hand reached for my face. Everything went dark. When I woke, I was on the shore, alone. The lake was calm again. The fog was gone. The canoe still sat where we'd found it, half submerged, flashlight still glowing weakly inside. I called their names until my throat was raw. No one answered. The water didn't move. But when I looked down, I could see faint ripples forming around my reflection, slow, rhythmic, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I don't remember how I got back to the truck. I remember the mud, the smell of wet iron, and the sound of water dripping from my clothes, but not how I moved, or how long I'd been walking. It was like waking up halfway through someone else's nightmare. When I finally turned the key, the engine screamed to life. I hit the gas so hard, the tires spun in the mud, spraying filthy water over the headlights. The lake vanished behind me, swallowed by trees and fog. But even miles later, I could still hear it. That sound, the steady, slow drip, drip, drip like something inside the truck was still wet. I pulled over near a gas station, stumbled out, and leaned against the hood. The world felt wrong. The air was too still. My heartbeat didn't sound like a heartbeat anymore. It sounded like water, churning in a pipe. When I looked down, I realized my hands were shaking. My fingernails were pale, almost translucent, and when I pressed my fingers to my wrist, the pulse I felt was slow, sluggish, not entirely human. I drove straight home. Didn't think, didn't speak, just drove. The whole way, I could see my reflection in the rearview mirror. At first, I thought the glass was fogged, but the longer I stared, the clearer it became that it wasn't fog at all. It was movement. The reflection's mouth kept twitching, lips barely parting, like it was whispering something I couldn't hear. I stopped looking after that. When I pulled into my driveway, dawn was breaking. The neighborhood was silent, asleep, untouched by whatever followed me out of that place. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time before I worked up the courage to open the door. As soon as my foot hit the ground, I heard it again. Water, dripping, from under the truck this time. I crouched down. A thin stream was leaking from beneath the chassis, clear, steady, pooling on the asphalt. But when I touched it, it wasn't cold. It was warm, and it smelled faintly like mud. I backed away. My chest tightened. The puddle grew quickly, spreading under my shoes, seeping toward my reflection in the metal of the car door. I looked down. My reflection smiled. I stumbled back, heart pounding, and ran inside. The house was dark, but the floor glistened faintly in the light from the hallway window. Every step I took left the wet print. My shoes had been soaked, but I hadn't noticed until then. I peeled them off by the door, and as I did, a single drop of water fell from the cuff of my jeans and splashed on the tile. The sound echoed too loud for a single drop. Drip, drip, drip. It was coming from the kitchen. I moved slowly, every nerve screaming for me to stop, but I couldn't. The faucet was running, though I hadn't turned it on. The water was black. It filled the sink almost to the brim, shimmering faintly in the dim light. As I stared, the surface began to ripple tiny, delicate movements, like breath. Then, from the dark reflection staring up at me, a voice rose. "You left them." I staggered backward, shaking my head. No, I didn't. They followed you." The voice wasn't one, it was many. Layered, wet, echoing through my skull. I grabbed a towel and slammed it over the sink, but the sound didn't stop. The water began to overflow, trickling over the counter and down the cabinets. I turned to run, but the floor was already slick beneath my feet. The puddles were moving, now sliding toward me. Then, from the middle of the room, a shape began to rise. At first, it was just water, spilling upward in impossible defiance of gravity. Then it began to take form. Shoulders, a head, arms. It was him, the man from the lake. Only now I could see through him, his body made of water, thin and shimmering. His eyes glowed faintly, hollow and white. He stepped forward. The sound of his feet was like waves breaking on the shore. "You brought me back," he said. I couldn't move. My legs felt rooted to the ground, heavy and numb. He raised his hand, dripping, trembling. Water streamed down his arm, pooling around my shoes. They're waiting. Behind him, the puddles spread wider, forming a perfect circle around us. Faces began to appear in it, Nick's, Megan's, cats floating just beneath the surface, their mouths open as if they were still screaming. I stumbled back against the counter. "Why me?" I choked. He smiled. The water trembled. "You look too long." The lights flickered. The air grew heavy, saturated. Every sound was muffled now. Every movement slowed. He took another step closer. His reflection spread across the floor, merging with mine. For a brief, horrifying moment, our shadows overlapped, one shape, one reflection. And then he was gone. The kitchen was empty again. The floor was dry. The air was still. I thought I'd imagined it until I looked down. Around my bare feet, the tile was wet. A single trail of muddy water led from the kitchen door back toward the street. And on the refrigerator, written in dripping letters, was one word: home. It's been 5 days since the lake. At least, that's what the clock says. But time doesn't feel real anymore. Every hour bleeds into the next, quiet and slow, like the world's been soaked in water and left to dissolve. I haven't left the house. I keep the lights off most of the time. I can still feel the wetness in the air, the faint smell of the reservoir clinging to my skin. It doesn't matter how long I stay under a hot shower. The moment I turn it off, I smell mud again. I don't dream anymore. I sink. At night, I hear them. Sometimes just a whisper, sometimes a knock. Once, the faucet turned itself on. I shut it off, but when I looked down, my reflection didn't stop moving. It kept breathing, even when I held my breath. I called the police once, just to tell someone what happened. I didn't expect them to believe me. I just needed to hear another human voice. The call went through. The line clicked, and for a moment, I thought I heard static. Then a voice answered. It wasn't human. You shouldn't have left them. I dropped the phone. The sound didn't stop. I could still hear it through the receiver, bubbling softly, like a whisper from the bottom of a well. Every mirror in the house is covered now, every reflective surface. But it doesn't matter. I still see the lake when I close my eyes, the black water, the fog, the canoe still half submerged, its flashlight flickering. And the faces, Nick, Kat, Megan. Sometimes they're smiling, sometimes they're just watching. This morning, I woke up to find footprints by my bed. Wet ones, small puddles trailing toward the window. The glass was fogged from the inside, and written across it in dripping letters were 2 words. Look down. I did, and there it was again. My reflection? Except it wasn't mine. It blinked a second too late. Its smile lasted a second too long. And when it opened its mouth, I heard water, not a splash, but the deep, steady sound of something breathing beneath the surface. I backed away, heart pounding, but the reflection followed, step for step. You can't leave, it said. I shook my head. You're not real. It smiled wider. You weren't either. Not anymore. My body went cold. My chest felt heavy, my breath thick. I stumbled into the bathroom and turned on the tap, needing to hear real water, something normal. But the sound that came out wasn't water, it was voices. Hundreds of them, layered and whispering, all saying the same thing in a perfect rhythmic chant. We're still swimming. The lights flickered. The sink filled fast, overflowing onto the floor, but the puddle didn't spread. It grew upward, curling like smoke until it took shape. The man. He stood there again, but his face wasn't his anymore. It was mine. You came back, he said with my voice. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My throat was full, heavy. He stepped forward and pressed a hand to my chest. It was warm, almost gentle. It's easier if you stop fighting. The world around me rippled. The walls blurred like reflections disturbed by touch. My skin felt cold and smooth, like glass. I could feel the weight of the water pressing from the inside out. Then the lights went out. When they came back on, he was gone. The puddles were gone. Everything was dry again. But when I spoke just to test, to prove I could still hear my own voice, it wasn't mine anymore. It came out wet, echoing, layered, like something speaking through me. I don't know how long I have. The hum never stops now. It's in the walls, in the pipes, in my veins. And sometimes, when I blink, I see a faint blue glow under my skin, like light passing through deep water. Maybe this is what it feels like when the lake takes you. Not drowning, not dying, just becoming part of something vast enough to remember you forever. If you ever find that reservoir, don't go near it. If you see a canoe with a light still glowing inside, don't look. And if someone starts swimming toward you in perfect silence, no ripples, no sound, row, no matter what. If you made it to the end, thank you for staying in the dark with me. Stories like this one about the things that wait beneath still water, they never really leave you, do they? If you found this story haunting or beautiful in its own way, leave a like and subscribe to Darkwing Horror to follow me into the next one. There are always more stories waiting. Some are still whispering. Some are already watching. Sleep well.